everybody. Today is Saturday, the 13th of February. We all know what tomorrow is, don't we? Tomorrow is the day of loving, of caring, of showering your girlfriend or boyfriend, your wife, your husband with flowers and chocolates or good food. Um, I might make a duck while I think about it. I might make duck à l'orange. Anyway, we shall see because I have my daughter here with me and my grandson with me, but they have gone grocery shopping. So, as they've gone grocery shopping, let us take a moment. I think if you can hear a cat in the background, we just have a friend visiting who has a cat who's very disgusted and disgruntled because Samantha and Reese, who he's become very fond of, have gone out shopping and they've left him here and he doesn't like it. Oh, Moonlight, come on. Come on. Anyway, he'll settle down. In the meantime, we've got cat news. I think that's kind of nice, really, because he's such a loving little cat. And if he actually does eventually come round my way, I'll grab him for you and you'll see just how cuddly and how lovely he is. Right. So it's Saturday morning, it's story time, and we're going to do a story time. Naturally, the story time is about love because it is the 14th. I don't expect personally any flowers or chocolates or anything of that nature. Such a long time since I've had things like that. Anyway, having said that, in my refrigerator are 2 boxes of dark chocolate cherries that Maggie sent me. Woohoo! Thank you. Anyway, right. All right. Settling down. So, okay, it is story time. So let's see. Once upon a time. This is a story about love. So once upon a time, there was a little girl. And this little girl grew up with lots of brothers and sisters. And she grew up in a very strict and a very stern family. Well, as often happens with lots of brothers and sisters, there's always one of those siblings, if not 2 or 3 of those siblings, who who get the special treatment and all of the loving and the cuddling, and then there are the others who get absolutely nothing at all. Well, the girl that we're talking about today, whose story we're in today, was one of the outsiders. She was different anyway from her siblings and maybe perhaps a little bit odd. And so her brothers and sisters used to pull fun, make fun of her. Her mother was not very nice to her. She was a little bit of an outcast in the family, basically. But she was a loving little girl. She was a. This is not the way this story is supposed to go. She was a loving little girl. She was a very caring little girl. She had a doll and she had a teddy. Her doll's name, well, she had 2 dolls eventually. One was named Jennifer and one was named Susan, and she loved those dolls. She took them everywhere with her. She was just absolutely loved those dolls. And she also had her teddy bear, who she called Teddy. And she would often play schools with them, or she would often play nurseries with them. And the amazing thing about it all was, hello, Kitty Kitty. The amazing thing about it all was that even though she really had no love showered on her, she, for some reason, knew how to shower love on her dolls, on her teddy, and they became her little world. And she sort of gathered her teddies around her, her teddy, her dolls. She had a rag doll, the ugliest rag doll you've ever seen. It was given to her when she stayed at the children's home one birthday. And she named this ugly green thing Daisy, still ugly to this day because she still has them on her sofa. And so, anyway, she showed lots of love and affection to all of her dolls and all of her toys. And as she grew and as she grew older, the any love or any affection that she received from her family became less and less, because the older she got, the more strange she became. So, as you can imagine, when a child, and some of you have had this happen to you, when you're a child, you look for love, don't you? You look for, and then you get to teenage, and then you don't look for love necessarily from your parents or from your siblings, and you're looking for love in a whole different way. And this is what happened to the girl, and she met the love of her life. And it was a love that would remain the love of her life throughout her coming years. Now, this is where love takes a funny turn. She loved him and he loved her. But unfortunately, he was older than she was, and she was very young at that time and very immature. And even though she loved him, and even though he loved her and showered all kinds of love on her, which is what she wanted, at some point she ended the relationship because, as we often do, we think that the world out there has more to offer, or we're young and we don't want to get tied down, or it might have been the fact that her father banned this boy from the house. And he banned this boy from the house because this boy had sort of wonderful olive skin, of a beautiful olive complexion. And her father was, not that he was a racist exactly, he just didn't want his children marrying outside of their own race. He had friends who were Indian, he had friends who were African, he had traveled all over the world. So it wasn't that he was prejudiced, it was that he just felt very strongly that you shouldn't mix races. And so, what with the father coming down and saying, don't bring him here ever again, and he's banned from the house, and what with her being very young, the girl just gave up. And they went their separate ways. And eventually she got married to someone she didn't really love, but it was a way of escaping the house, it was a way of escaping her life, it was a way of escaping. And I don't think her husband loved her either, because, well, actually, even before they were married, 3 days before the wedding date, he was taking another girl to his bed, which was actually his future wife's bed also. And unfortunately, they were found out, they were discovered, but they got married anyway and lived sort of not a bad life. It wasn't awful. It wasn't a life of love. And it was a life where the husband would travel a great deal, and he would go here and there and have a girlfriend in this town and then another little, sort of, sometimes they were sort of semi-serious, and sometimes they were just one-off. I think we call them one-night stands, don't we? And a couple of times, he brought home a disease or two, or an issue or two with him along the way. Now, you would ask, well, what was she doing with him then? Why did she stay with him? Well, it was sort of all that sort of idea of love, isn't it? That idea of love. Love can be amazing, but it also can be that thing that binds us, or that thing that ties us, because when we are afraid, we're afraid of abandonment, or we're afraid of, sort of never finding somebody else maybe, or we're afraid of never thinking that we're good enough, we tend to put up with things that we know we shouldn't put up with. So the girl, who was no longer a girl now, she was grown, tended to put up with things probably because she was afraid. She was afraid of life. She'd been told by her family when she was little that she was nothing. She'd been made to feel nothing. And here she is now with a husband who has numerous girlfriends, numerous affairs, again, made to feel nothing, made to feel less. Now, I'm telling an age-old story, aren't I? Because how many of you out there have had this same thing happen to you? It is not an unusual story. Why am I calling it a love story then? Well, we do things because we think we love somebody. We do things and we put up with things because we think we love somebody. But as I've taught my daughter, hopefully keeping my fingers crossed, taught my daughter that you never, ever, ever, no matter how much you might love someone, no matter how much you might love your job, no matter how much you might love your friends, your neighbors, no matter how much you love a thing, when that job, when that boss, when that husband or wife, when that girlfriend or boyfriend starts to abuse, it begins with disrespect, I think. Disrespecting someone, not respecting someone enough to be loyal, not expecting or respecting someone enough to be honest, not respecting someone enough to truly do everything in your power to not hurt them and to not, cause them pain. When you respect and you love someone in that way, then it works. But as soon as the respect goes out the window, or as soon as one or the other partner, whether it's uh, the relationship with a girlfriend or boyfriend, husband or wife, or whether it's simply a relationship with your boss, or whether it's simply a relationship with your girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever, that's the time to say enough. Oh, but we cling, don't we? Because we love. And love seems to, we're told in all the songs, love conquers all. It actually doesn't. It doesn't solve an issue. It doesn't, just we can love somebody more than they love us, or they can tell us how much they love us. My husband used to tell me how much he loved me all the time, at the same time being a naughty boy. But the girl, here is her story. The girl believed because she wanted to believe, because it was easier to believe, because she was afraid not to believe. When two people come together, they should come together fulfilling each other, but also being fulfilled themselves, not looking for that other half to complete them. I know that's a romantic notion, it's a romantic movie notion, but you need to be whole and complete in your own self. Be able to see the value of your own self and understand the value of your own self, so that if people do start to disrespect you, and if people start to abuse you or take advantage of you, which is the same thing as abusing you, really, if people start to do that, if you are solid and happy within your own self, and you know that you are valuable, and you know that you are worth everything, then that is when you're able to say no to the abusers. That is when you're able to say no. You treat me like that again and I'm off, so see ya. It is only when we are um, lacking that self-worth, it is only when we are lacking the ability to think beyond what other people's opinion of us is, it's important to have your own opinion of your own self. Well, eventually you'll be pleased to know that the girl actually did get to that point in her life. It took her a little while, I have to say, but eventually she did get to that point in her life. Come on, Moonlight. Come on, baby. Come on. Excuse me 1 second, folks. We're going to have him. Come on. There he is. There he is. So it's only when we start to uh, have faith in ourselves, and luckily the girl learned that if she didn't think much of herself, then she really couldn't expect to be disappointed, could she? She couldn't expect other people to think much of her. She didn't think much of herself. And this is the key, I think, to true love within relationships, within husband and wife, true loves within relationships with children, with parenting and taking care of our children. You have to love yourself first, and then you can teach your children how to love themselves. So Valentine's Day, when you get your cards and your flowers, your chocolates, and all of those other things, they're lovely, aren't they? They're lovely to have. They're lovely to be, nurtured and to be cherished. The girl learned that if she got a dozen roses from her husband on Valentine's Day, she learned not to have her head turned. She learned that the dozen roses were just a token to say, this will keep her quiet while I go off being naughty on my own and doing whatever I want to do on my own. She learned to dump the flowers eventually, shame as that would be. She learned to ask herself, now, what are these gifts about? Are they truly gifts of love, or are they just to keep me quiet, to keep me passive, to keep me trotting along as usual? Love is a funny thing. We all want it, we all seek it, we all search for it. Make sure it's real. Make sure that that love is real love. Make sure that the truth of your love shines out. Now we can all be fooled. We can all be have our heads turned. But a husband who loves you is a husband who will say no to you when necessary, but will make sure that he does everything in his power not to hurt you. A wife will absolutely make sure that her husband is probably well fed and well nurtured and has clean laundry. Yeah, that's the lot of women, but you know what I'm saying. But will make absolutely certain to bring you things and to find things that bring joy and happiness to the relationship. If you, as a young man or a young woman, are searching and seeking for the love of your life, seek first the love of self. That's what you have to do. The girl learned that, unfortunately, as she grew older and older, and as she became an old lady, she was able to sit here and tell the story of that girl who she used to be, that girl who was so timid and who was so shy, that girl who desperately sought love and found it and then turned her back on it. How weird is that? Because she wasn't old enough or wise enough or sensible enough, whatever that is, she wasn't old enough to know that some things are worth hanging on to and some things are worth working for. Your husband, your wife, your girlfriend, boyfriend, your spouse, whoever that might be, may not be perfect. The chances are they won't be. But look at the good points. Does the good stuff outweigh the bad? If it does, hang on to your partner. If the bad stuff outweighs the good, ask yourself, why are you holding on to this relationship? Is it because you're afraid that you won't have anybody in your life? Is it because you're afraid that on Valentine's Day you won't get those flowers and those chocolates? Is it because you are lacking in such self-worth that maybe just holding on to something even though you know it isn't right? Is that what you want to do because it's better than being lonely and by yourself? The girl a long time ago discovered that the worst kind of loneliness that she experienced was to lie in bed next to someone and be lonely. There's nothing worse than lying next to that person you thought might be the love of your life, not be able to reach out, not be able to hold on, not be able to just talk or to cuddle or just to, just to snuggle into. The worst kind of loneliness is being with someone and being lonely. Love is in the air. It's all around us. 1,000 different ways of being loved. We know of God's love. God's love is unconditional. Thank goodness for us, because let's face it, none of us are perfect, are we? The love of God is something that I value and that I have experienced over and over and over again in my life. The love of a child, the love of a grandchild, I experience that every day. The love of friends and the love of friendships, wonderful. And I'm lucky because I experience that every day. I mean, look at my life. I'm amazing. I mean, look at this. I have everything I need. Do I have that one single person in my life, that one love of my life? No, but I have so many other things. And, again, as with age comes a little bit of wisdom, I would rather be lonely and on my own than be lonely with someone that I can't talk to, that I can't put my arms around, that I can't have that wonderful and a great experience with on a daily basis. If you out there are listening to this and you have some semblance of that, you need to work on it and make it better. And here we go. Tomorrow is your opportunity. Whether it's your husband, go out buying flowers. The flowers aren't just for women, you know. Go out and buy chocolates or make a fabulous dinner or make a cake or something. But, aside from that, work on just going up, holding, loving, cuddling that person. That's important. The way we show our love brings love back to us. If you have a partner who is worth working towards, don't wait, start today. If you are uncertain about your partnership, then don't be afraid to examine it. And don't be afraid to do something about it. Don't ever take abuse anywhere, anytime. When someone starts to criticize you, and especially if they start to criticize you publicly, are they being respectful to you? The truth is that they are not. So you either say to them, please do not treat me this way. This is disrespectful and I don't like it. Or if they continue to do it, well, you know the answer to that one too, don't you? For those who are brave enough to step out to find a new world and a new life and a new love, it's scary. But better to be on your own than to be lonely with someone who is by your side constantly every day, but berating and criticizing and treating you shabbily. The girl learned that she would rather be on her own than have that. But the girl, as a woman, looks out there. She sees beautiful relationships, and there are so many of them. And when people come to talk to me, and they're unsure, I say to them, he's a good man or she's a wonderful woman. For goodness sake, start talking to each other, communicate with each other, because communication is the key to not finding that love, but holding on to it, helping it to grow, nurturing it, communicating, and always, always saying how you feel, but in a nice way, in a good way, in a decent way to each other. Respect goes hand in hand with love. So the girl became a happy old lady eventually. Took a while, uh, but there's so much love abounding and there's so much love surrounding that girl that she feels so very, very blessed. And as I've said, the love of God is all encompassing. So when you're thinking about what to do tomorrow, do something nice, do something special, not just for the love of your life, not for your soul, not just for your soulmate. Do something special for those you love. Do something special or acknowledge them in some small way. Call them up, say I love you. Stop, don't be afraid to say those three little words, I love you, because that's also the key to bringing happiness and to love and joy into your lives, as the girl has learned over the years. At the end. Right, Chris. Did you like that story?
Oh, it's it's partly melancholy and partly hopeful. So,
Well, I
yes.
hope it's mostly hopeful.
I just think about how many people are going through those experiences even today, you
Yeah.
know? But hope is on the horizon.
Yes. And I think, finding a self worth, understanding that you are special. Your angels think you're special. God thinks you're special. We think you're special. If you're with someone who does not think you're special enough to treat you in a special way, in a loving way, in a nurturing way, you either change their mind or find someone who will treat you that way. Comments, Chris. Have we got any comments? Have I silenced everybody?
Well, in the beginning, you had a whole lot of hellos, like from Cheryl and Amy and Maggie, um, Irma. And then Maggie started with my heart goes out to her, meaning the girl. And I agree with you, Rosemary. Respect and love yourself, not to take what you are experiencing in any relationship and to leave it is a good
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
Um, Karen and LJ are saying hello from Canada and happy Valentine's Day.
and the same to you guys.
Mark's asking, Rosemary, will you and Gray Eagle be my Valentine?
Oh, Mark, absolutely. Thank you. Yes, the answer is yes. I don't quite know what that means, but I haven't been anybody's Valentine for so long. Mark, thank you for asking, and yes, I will be. Yes.
Dee saying good morning to everyone and happy Valentine's weekend. And then when you started the story, Mark said, beautiful story of what love does, and that we are all here on this plane because of love. The creator of love wanted us all to know and experience love.
Yes. So true. So very true.
Amy says, it's a beautiful story of self love. Maggie says, I can say so much on this, but I'll save you all. Laugh out loud.
Maggie, we're happy if you want to share with us, so go ahead.
And then Mark says, I have been single and alone and happy being with me since 2013. I have this inner love of self, and people see it in me. Negative people stare away from me, and I think it is because I won't allow it in my world.
I think, Mark, I think that's so true. I know that whenever I sort of come across negativity in any way, it's very, very difficult. It's very, very hard. And I have to admit that I have been, in the last 24 hours, I've been such a negative Nelly. Really, really miserable and unhappy and snapping and snarling and thoroughly being miserable one way or another. You won't believe me, will you? You don't think I'm capable of it, but my back has been, I've been in such pain with my back, and unfortunately that makes me more intolerant than I would like to be. But we all have our days and we all have our moments, and none of us are perfect. And luckily, I'm hoping that those people who have been around me the last couple of days, having to put up with it, love me enough to actually say, the story about the lion. Do you remember the story about the lion, Chris, who was growling and snarling at everybody, and it turned out that he got a thorn stuck in his paw, and I think it was a little girl or a little boy went up to him and took the thorn out of his paw, and he became a pussycat. So maybe over the next couple of days, I shall become a pussycat again, she says again. Not sure I'm ever a pussycat, but everybody, we all have our off days, and we all have those days that we struggle with things, and none of it is perfect. And when I'm saying to people, go out and talk to your loved one and do something special for them, if you're in pain and if you're hurting, try if you can to overcome that, because because we do need to overcome those things. But also, hopefully, those around us will give us the benefit of the doubt too. Chris, keep going.
Cheryl says, I was with a man for 20 years. I finally had to leave because of emotional abuse. I tried every way I could to help him, but to no avail. But now I focus more on self love. The current guy has issues, but I can't help him unless I love myself and respect myself.
That's exactly right. And you can't help, you can't solve other people's issues for them if they're not willing to have those issues solved either. So it sort of becomes, that tough. If you're not careful, you want to help, but at the same time, destroying yourself in helping somebody else is not the way to go. Let's not have any martyrs here today. I do hope, my darling, that this sorts itself out for you. But you're right. The most important thing is to like oneself enough that you can look at yourself and you can say. I think we talked about this, didn't we, Chris, a few weeks ago? Well, I do this with my students, and I think if you can look at yourself and you can say, as I do, I may not be the nicest person in the world, and yesterday I was definitely not the nicest person in the world. I might not be the nicest person in the world, but if I didn't know me and I met me for the first time and I got to know me, I might quite like me. Very convoluted way of looking at it, but I think it's very important that we all find ways and means of making ourselves better, making ourselves more likable to ourselves. And then we find those people who come to us are not the negative Nellies. We find that the people who come to us are also positive people, because positivity draws to it. Positivity, like attracts like. So when you become more positive within yourself and more loving towards yourself, and therefore less likely to take that disrespect that some people do like to dish out to us, don't they? If you refuse to be disrespected, that's a big issue, because then those people who are inclined towards being disrespectful will stay away from you, and that can only be to the good, right? Chris, do you have anything to say on this subject, or shall we just keep going?
Well, I'd love to be able to get to everybody's questions first. I think that's what they're hoping for. Maggie says, my aunt and uncle were the ultimate relationship, respect and love. She stuttered greatly, and when they fought, my uncle could very well have full control. But in their fight, he would say his piece, fold his arms, and wait until my aunt could get her words out, then continue on respecting her, even in a time where he could have overrun her. As my aunt was a little redhead, he could have feared for his life, but there was that regard, respect, and love for her we could all see. That's really lovely.
That is lovely. And again, I said there are so many examples of good relationships around. We just have to look for them. But there are so many relationships around that are good examples of what relationships should be, and we can all, if we remember respect, 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 loving and caring, but ultimately respecting, then we stand a far, far better chance of finding that true and lasting love. I know that there are many of you out there who you are in this situation yourself, or you know of people who are in this situation who, you know, even when you're young, or the relationship is fairly new, you hear one or the other say something that is just somewhat disrespectful. That's the time to nip it in the bud, and you say to that person, I really like you a lot, or I really love you, or I really could learn to love you, but speak to me like that again and we're done, because it will not tolerate disrespect. Now, sometimes I think people are so used to being disrespectful they don't even realize that they're doing it. So giving them that opportunity to change, I think, is important. But if it continues, that's my opinion. Right, Chris?
Yes, and that works.
Yeah.
Margaret says, I consider myself so very lucky to have been given a second chance to find love. And so I will be celebrating happily with my husband and children tomorrow, 29 years after we lost my first husband.
Wow. That's Maggie, you're so fortunate, and that's amazing. And do
Well,
have
this
a
is
fantastic
Margaret.
Margaret, sorry.
Yep.
Margaret, do have a wonderful and a fantastic and a happy day tomorrow. Have a happy weekend, because we should certainly celebrate Valentine's throughout the weekend. Keep going, Chris.
Barb Sheehan says, I know that story. I read it and I read it and cried. I know that girl. Amy says, I am currently single because I had the courage to walk away from a relationship with a lot of disrespect. So
Oh, good
she's
for
into
you.
self-love now.
Good for you, Amy. Good for you. But this is what, when we're talking about this, and for those of you who have had a relationship that didn't work out, please don't give up, because, there are good people out there. There are good men out there, and there are good women out there. Don't think that, I've had it, now I'm done. Because there are always opportunities to find new love, new relationships. And even I got a marriage proposal the other day. I don't know why I'm telling you this. It was some lovely man on Instagram who said, "Will you marry me, Rosemary?" I don't think he was serious, but still, hey, how nice that someone should take a look and say, "Oh, yeah, yeah." Well, but I'm not. You all know I'm not taking it seriously. But what I'm saying to you all is, don't give up. Don't give up on the possibilities and the chance that you will find that true love. I was on a flight. It must have been about 3 or 4 years ago, and the flight was late. And we arrived. I arrived in Sarasota Airport. That's in Florida. I arrived in Sarasota Airport, and there was a lovely lady. She was probably in her early 80s, and she was English, and there was some mix up with because the flights were late. There was some mix up as to who was going to pick her up and so on. So, and I know that the flight staff, everybody was concerned about her. So I sat with her, and even though my ride was already there, I sat with her, and I talked to her, and she told me how she had been married, sort of not desperately unhappily, but it wasn't the love of her life. The love of her life had apparently gone off to Australia to make his fortune. Anyway, her husband died. The love of her life came back into her life. She was 82 or 83 years old, and he was a similar age, and his wife had died, and they were meeting in Sarasota and spending a month together in Sarasota to get to know each other again. She was like a teenager. She was so excited by it all. She just, and I sat with her until eventually someone did come and pick her up, because I wouldn't leave her by herself. But she told me all of these stories of when they were young lovers. And I thought, wow, that reminds me of my first love, my love, John Stuart Reed, who was the absolute love of my life. He loved me, he worshipped me. I was young, I threw it away, biggest mistake. But having said that, I wouldn't have had my daughter if I hadn't done that. There are always things that we can see. I shouldn't have done that, and I wish I'd done this instead of that. But don't ruin your lives over what could have been or might have been, because there are always positive things that you can find in life. Even when you make a mistake about things, there are always positive things that you can find. And all of you out there, and all of you out there who are older, or you think that love has passed you by and life has passed you by, no. We've all, if this 83-year-old could be excited like a teenager, she could be so excited about meeting the love of her life after something like, I think it was 50 years. And then, finding him, getting together again. And I just have a good feeling about the whole relationship between them. So you never know what is around the corner for any of us, do we? Chris, keep going.
Carolyn, showing concern for you and your back, said, I have recently purchased an adjustable back brace that helps so much when I have a flare up.
Okay. Well, thank you. Maybe you'll let. Well, I think we can find out what that is. I did take some nature's own stuff or something or another yesterday, which so far has not helped. I don't know if you. I'm trying not to sit stiffly, but I also found some great cream that's a really good friend of mine who's a masseuse. Thank you, Karen. I found it in the cupboard this morning, and Samantha slathered my back with it, and so I'm keeping my fingers crossed that that will help as well. But I think it's the traveling and the packing and the running around stuff. And we did spend the day on the beach yesterday. You would have thought that would have, well, not the day, not the whole day, the afternoon. You would have thought that would have been a good thing. Just one of those things that we live with, we put up with, we get on with. And usually I don't say anything about it, but as we were talking about not being perfect, I thought I'd better own up to that part of my not being perfect, as everybody seems to think that I am. Right, Chris, keep going.
Mark says, I find so many people don't love themselves and seek and yearn for true love, and they search and become depressed.
Yeah. Well, I think I agree with you, Mark, but I think that, and I'm not. I never want to be seen to be someone who is a Bible thumper or someone who is sort of out there, continually forcing God and my own beliefs, onto other people. But I'm so blessed to have the love of God, and I'm so blessed to have the love of my grandson, to have the love of my daughter, to have the love of friends around me. And I think that if it's sometimes it's a hard thing to do. You get lonely, you get depressed, but it's a very hard thing to do sometimes to be positive. But I think if you can think on those positive lines, and instead of thinking about all the things that you don't have, focus on the good things that you do have, and that's the most important thing.
Suzanne says, I feel the more I learn to love and respect myself, the more connections I can make with positive, loving people.
That's exactly right. I think I tried to say that within that story. I think that's exactly right, because when you are loving yourself and you're comfortable with yourself, then the joy of knowing yourself and the joy of feeling good about yourself actually does shine through, and like attracts like, so it does draw to you good and positive energy.
Jillian says, you told me in a consult that my husband has a heart of gold. I repeat this in my head when he does something not so kind. Haha. I have also decided to do something out of the ordinary, special for him every day without expectations, and see what happens.
Good. I'm really thrilled that you are, sort of taking this proactive and positive actions. I mean, I think taking action is important. I think for those of us who are earth signs, I know that Chris is an earth sign and I'm an earth sign. We are proactive, but there are a lot of people who'd like to think about things and don't always take actions and don't always think that actions are necessary. But I think that in showing your love for somebody, taking an action is very important. So, Gillian, yay, I'm glad. I'm good, 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 good. Keep up the good work. You will find it will pay off. I'm absolutely certain of that. Yes, Chris.
Jeff says, respect and support for our partners' individual gifts is where the joy and spontaneity comes from. My wife has supported me, and I support her.
Well, I know Jeff. I know that I know you, and I know Andrea, and I don't think you can have a more special and more loving person. So as your wife, and we both know she's had to put up with you, but you're worth putting up with. So So that's a good thing too. So I think that, when you sometimes relationships are hard, there's no doubt about it. And if you want to give up at the first hurdle or the second hurdle, that's your choice. But I think that the best relationships are those where no matter what the hurdles are, you communicate with each other. You see how you can solve them. You see how you can work together to solve them, and that is, and that's what true love is all about, giving the benefit of the doubt and seeing if, instead of saying the first, second, third, or even the 10th hurdle, I've had enough of this. If you love someone and you know that they love you, there are ways to communicate to find that good ground, and I know that Jeff and Andrea have found that. Keep going, Chris.
And he says, going on 44 years married.
Wow.
All right. So Mark says, I have found that so many tend to push love and seek it and think they know love, but true love comes from within oneself. And as you said, verily loving self first before anyone will only open the door to possibilities. My mom and dad had a 70-year love affair. In 68 of those, they were married.
Wow. Oh, how nice. How nice. That's a lot to live up to, though, isn't it, Mark? Boy, oh boy. But you're absolutely right. And I think that, there is a tendency, young or old, I don't think this applies just to young people, young or old. When you find someone you think you might be able to love, there's a tendency to jump in too soon, and sort of, and having expectations is always not a good thing either. Of course, the expectation that someone is going to be respectful to you should always stand, and if that expectation is not met, then it should be dealt with. But I think being hopeful, and I also think there's, if we have one bad relationship, there's a tendency for us then to judge the next relationship in the same way. Now, it's a natural thing for us to do, but never works, does it? You can't assume that because you've had one bad apple in your basket that the next one is going to turn out to be bad, even though it looks to be good. So giving the benefit of the doubt is a good thing, but not to the point where you take abuse. And being careful to jump in, take your time about it, get to know that person a little bit. Chris.
Bettis says, good morning, Rosemary. By now, you have become a permanent presence in my house, and even my family know you. In
Oh,
the
good.
kitchen, on the shelf, there are all of your books that I reread with pleasure.
Oh, thank you so much, and hi to Better's family. Thank you so much for that. Chris.
Vicky says, my motto is always find someone who makes you laugh. And that's all we have for comments right now.
Okay, well, I think that, sorry, I've got some eyes here. I think that a laughter, being able to laugh, is a huge key to having a relationship, a good relationship. But I tell you this story. I might have told this story before. I'll tell you briefly a little story about an old man and an old lady. They were both probably in their late 80s, or sorry, their late 70s or early 80s. Okay. And the old man was going around one of these stores, the kind of store that sells everything. And he was telling, he sort of got into conversation with a young woman who was, sort of at the checkout. And he said, he was telling her, every day when I go shopping, doesn't matter where I am, every day I always look for something, some small gift. It doesn't have to be expensive, but I always look for some small gift to take home to my wife, because he says every day when I go out and about, I just wanted to know that I'm thinking about her. So I buy her a little gift of this, that, and the other. And the salesperson was thinking, oh, golly, how nice is that? And no wonder he has this long loving relationship. And because, he's showing his wife that he loves her on a daily basis. And then next up comes the old man's wife, and the old woman looks at, and she's heard what her husband said, and her husband goes off to do a little bit more shopping or looking or something, and the sales assistant says to the old lady, she says, "Oh my goodness, he must love you so much. You must have such a wonderful relationship, and the fact that he buys you these little gifts every day." And the old woman looked at the girl and she said, "Yeah, how would you like that load of crap in your house?" She says, I can't, I can't throw it away. I've got piles and piles of the stuff." But she said, "I just can't tell him not to buy it for me." And in a way, that's her sharing love for him, because she really doesn't want the stuff. And it's really a whole load of nothing at all, little bits and pieces that are no good to anybody, that she'd love to throw away, but that she keeps. And so that's her act of love. So his act of love is buying her all this stuff, and her act of love is accepting it and keeping her mouth shut. so, so love comes in different ways and different forms, right, Chris?
Absolutely. There's a couple more comments.
Okay.
Karen says, "Hello, Rosemary. I'm celebrating the love of becoming a new grandparent this year to my
Oh,
identical twin girl granddaughters. A
oh
great love
gosh.
I never expected. What a gift."
Oh my, what a gift, what a gift, what a gift. Oh, well, I hope you're going to be, well, I know you are going to be showering. They're twins then, right, Chris? Is that right? Twin
Yeah.
girls to a twin girl. Wow.
Well, they don't know that there's twins coming. It's just that the
Oh,
granddaughters are identical twins.
oh, sorry. Well, guess what? Spoil these children. I'm a great believer in spoiling. We have our rules and regulations, we have manners, but uh, at the same time, uh, you spoil them with love, you spoil them with cuddles. I had the best morning this morning because my darling boy came into me, and he's peering around and he's looking at me lying there to see if I'm awake or if I'm asleep, because he knows if I'm awake, he can come and chat to me and talk to me. So he came in with me and we had some cuddles together. I mean, you can't beat the love of your children, except with the love of your grandchildren. Right, Chris?
All right. The next comment is from Mark. The late George Burns hired once that in a matter of words, the love of his life was Gracie Allen, and he said that the real love that you have for your partner begins the moment you wake up next to each other and carry on with the day. That is true love.
Yeah. And I think that is so right, which is why I've said the worst kind of loneliness, for me certainly, is lying in bed next to someone and not being able to reach out, to wake up in the morning and they've gone, or they're ignoring you, or whatever it is, or in some cases they're so drunk and recovering from a hangover that they don't even see you or hear you, or they're so busy with their work or whatever, they don't even see you, they don't even acknowledge you. I mean, to be able to wake up next to someone and to sort of reach out, hold them and say good morning, I mean, that's got to be, that's got to be love. I love the idea of that. Yes, Chris.
Sherry says, "My granddaughter has my heart. She's still with us." And then Bright Star says, "Good to see you. I just got in. Love from Holland."
Oh, well, hi from Holland, and love to you too.
Um, let's see. Mark says, "I had no idea Joe, the word hired, was placed in that statement. Oy vey." So whatever he wrote before was a little bit different than what was typed in. I'm sorry, whatever he said before was a little bit different than what he typed in. But okay, there's another comment. "Hello, Rosemary. Sorry
Hi.
to miss today. I lost my fur baby sidekick Sarge last week to an unexpected accident. Say a prayer for me, please. I'm doing well, just memory moments hurt."
Oh, My darling, and my heart does go out to you. I think, I think that since I've been home, it's been very difficult for me too, because there are those, you're fine, you're going along and you're fine, you come to terms with what's going on, and then suddenly something happens, or you look in a particular spot, or you see that favorite blanket that they used to have, and it's sort of, as you call them, our fur babies, in my case cachorro, is so very present in the house, and coming back to the house and seeing, I opened the silverware, the drawer with the silverware in it yesterday, and there's his ball. Well, it was a new ball. I was about to give it to him, and it's a new ball, still in its mesh wrapper. And I'm thinking to myself, what am I going to do with this now? And I think I just might keep it for a bit longer. But there are so many different, different things that remind you. So I'm absolutely saying a prayer for you, my darling. Absolutely.
Maggie
Yes.
says, I had a George Burns story that I kept deleting. One of his tales about his marriage was that he cheated on Gracie, and one day he overheard talking to a friend and said, I hope George cheats again. I need a match to the last crystal vase he gave me when he was guilty. He never cheated again because he knew Gracie was fully aware.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
Oh my.
Well, it's easy to cheat. And I know how easy it is for people to get into those situations, but the consequences of cheating are so far reaching. People feel less than. I remember the first time I found my husband cheating. You start to wonder, what is it about me? uh, Ridiculous, right? Ridiculous. There's nothing about me that would cause him to go and cheat. He cheated because he looked at someone, met them, liked them, and there we are. And they fell into it. Had nothing to do with me. But when you first find that you're being cheated on, or you first experience that disloyalty from someone, I think the automatic thing is to go to what's wrong. What's wrong with me? And that's so ridiculous. So don't you do that, any of you out there who've been cheated on. Don't you think it's your issue, because it isn't.
And then, since we're right about up at time, we'll leave this with Mark. Mark says, the first love of my life, many, many years ago, I had sent he and his partner a long stem rose each, and we were all good friends. And I was the last person that he spoke to before he died. And I ended the phone call with, I love you, buddy. I will always love you, and we'll see each other again. And he died 3 days later.
I'm so pleased that you had that opportunity, Mark, to take that moment and to connect and to say how you felt. I'm so pleased that you had that opportunity. And I think that we should end this program by saying, for all of those of you who either don't do it because you're too shy, or because you were never taught, this is a good excuse, I was never taught to be affectionate, so I'm not going to be. It's ridiculous. Just because you weren't taught it doesn't mean you can't do it. I think that if there's anybody out there, for any of you, and you need to say something to them, or you need to reach out to them, or you haven't done, this is the time, this is the weekend. Pick up the phone, send a card, an email, whatever it is that you do, whatever it is that you can do. And if that person is living in the same house with you, start the morning tomorrow by going up to them, putting your arms around them, and unconditionally, without expectation that they're going to do the same back to you, without any expectation whatsoever, just say, I love you. Because you never know when it's going to be too late. You never know when, somebody will pass, the accidents happen. And I don't want to see any of you listening to this show. I don't want any of you to have to deal with what I see all the time. People in the spirit world who say to me, if only I'd said, if only I wish I'd done this, I wish I'd done that. Don't live with regrets. Don't die with regrets. Don't allow other people in your lives to die without ever hearing you say to them, I love you, or I care about you, or whatever it is. Take this weekend to think about that and spread the love. Okay, that's it. Well, all right. So we know that I'm going to just mention this very briefly. We absolutely know that we're going to be doing our Talking to the Dead, who I don't believe are dead at all. We're going to be having uh, a time we've decided, I think, that for most people, because we're trying to span many different countries at once, we're thinking perhaps it's going to be a Saturday morning. So we've yet to pick the date, but keep looking, keep checking my website, rosemaryaltea.com. If you want to be notified, if you want to be on our mailing list and get the newsletter every month that tells you what we're up to, then you can either go to the website and subscribe, or you write to Rosemary at rosemaryaltea.com, or Chris, Kris, at rosemaryaltea.com, and say, just put me on the mailing list or keep me notified as to when this is coming through. As soon as you see it, you need to start booking pretty soon, because we're only having small numbers at a time because we don't know how it's going to work. But Grey Eagle and I are going to be talking to those who we consider dead who aren't really. We're going to be giving messages. So that's going to be the whole theme of our next webinar. And if it works, we'll be doing that on a fairly regular basis. So watch out for that. In the meantime, um, please, 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 thank you all for joining us this morning. Hope you enjoyed the story. Please, please, please have a very blessed rest of the day. Thank you, Chris. And I'd like, of course, to say thank you to Grey Eagle. Have a very blessed rest of the day, everyone. Have a very loving, as much as you can, share the love, whether it's with your children, your grandchildren, your spouse, your partner, your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it is, your beautiful little furry creatures, as somebody called them, your animals. Please, please, please share the love this weekend, and have a wonderful and a very blessed weekend, everybody.